we're looking at t-tests, and we're looking at really how we use the graphic display calculator to do the t-test. And what I find is a weakness in some of the textbooks I've looked at is they don't explain this very well. So I'm going to try and explain this as best I can and fill in some gaps that might be in the textbook. So we've got this Diet Queen website that claim that they're going to lose weight. So one thing we've already done is we've written out our HO and whatever, and we'll concentrate on the decisions later, but let's just write out some important information. And that's mu is 88, and x bar is 84, because we're going to need all of this later on. Standard deviation is 12, and n is 30. The significance level for this question, 5% significance level. So sometimes you see that as just an alpha. So that's 5% significance level. And finally, you might be asked to write down the degrees of freedom. I'm just going to write DF, degrees of freedom. And they're always n minus 1. Now, this curve here is a T curve, but it looks like a normal distribution curve. The T curve is slightly different. It's slightly pushed down and goes wider, and it's all because of the n. And it's something to do with sampling you don't really need to worry too much about. But this is where the degrees of freedom come in and why it is different. Now, like a normal curve, the T curve, this value here is 0. Now, we're at the 5% level of significance, and we're also looking for the mean to come down. So what I'm going to do is similar to a normal distribution. I'm going to draw it in this part here, and this is 5% or 0.05. So this is the alpha value, 5%. And what we can say is that if our T statistic is in here, we're going to reject HO. But if our T statistic is in here, we're going to accept HO. And these decisions will come later when I show you how to put all these things together for the full test. So this is where we accept HO. But what we need here is a critical value to decide where the cutoff point is. So from here, you may already know that I've got my T value as negative 1.83 on a previous video. But I want to know what the critical value is here. So this is pretty important. So for this, I'm going to go to my calculator and I'm going to replicate this diagram on my calculator. So if we can come across and pick up a calculator, and we'll go into the statistics mode. So that's number 2. And for this one, we're going to go distribution T. And similar to the normal distribution, we're going to use the inverse T. And we're going to go to variable. So that's inverse T variable. We're going to come down here to the area, and we're going to say that area is 0.05. It's on the negative side, so we're going to have to make a negative answer. Degrees of freedom is 29, and we're just going to execute that. Okay, so this gives me 1.69 or 1.70, but it's a negative because it's on the left side. So that's the really important one that I want. The critical value as negative 1.7. Now I'm going to make a decision later on, but basically it's that if T is less than negative 1.7, it falls in the shaded area, we're going to reject HO. If T is greater than negative 1.7, we're going to accept HO. Now that's part 1. We're going to see part 2 in a minute, which is going to deal with the p-value, which is often seen as a more important value for your t-test.